Islam Morris, please be seated. I rise, giving all praises to Allah, the Father of the universe, cherisher and sustainer of all the boundless universes. We extend the highest of honors to His Holy Divine Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the founder, the Moorish, Science Temple of America. Islam, we extend high honors as well to his forerunner, the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, who did indeed warn and stir up the nations. Islam, give a high honors to the Moorish flag, our flag, the red flag with the green five-pointed star in the center. These 5 points represent love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Islam, give high honors as well to the American flag, also known as the Stars and Stripes. This flag exists as a constant reminder that the European nations owe you, the Moors, with compound interest. Islam, this is also the flag of our birth. We give high honors to the noble Sheik staff and noble Vanguard staff for keeping the peace. And give honors to you, the hills and days, for without you there is no Moorish movement. Islam, how's everyone on the holy night?
All is well.
As well, it's been a long week, we're tired, right? Probably hungry. We get some rest, right? We'll labor not to burden y'all too much longer. I ain't gonna make no promises. Try, right? But they said the try is to fail, right? But let's go to chapter 48. Excuse me, 47, the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'm only gonna do 2 verses. See, I'm working at this thing. I'm not gonna burden the Moors, right? Chapter 47. You often hear our people when we communicate in reference to ourselves, we always give a slave reference. You know, back during slavery is because why this is not working in our communities is because of slavery and chattel and the transatlantic slave trade and the diaspora. That's Brother Raphael's word. The diaspora. Yeah, I read that. And so on and so forth. So all these slave references. So we have to square that whole how that happened. Okay, and are we the only people that's happened to? Right? Because if you were to close your eyes and think of the word slave, you're not going to see nobody else. Islam? So that's how deep the programming is, that when you see slave, which is not even our word.
Indeed, family.
That's in reference to Eastern Europeans, the Slavic countries. But you don't see Slavic-looking people when you hear the word slave when you close your eyes.
Right.
You see yourself, right? And that's what you see when you hear the word, then how good is your self-image? Right? So now, chapter 47, we're going to hit verses 16 to 17, the last 2. In the name of Allah, the beneficent and merciful, through his holy divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali, says, through, and again, that's chapter 47, verse 16 and 17. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact that they honored not the creed and principles of their forefathers. 17. That is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mother and father and strayed after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing of. Islam, Moors?
Islam.
Surely Allah speaks to His holy divine prophet of Islam. Now, that's basically breaking down the fact that honoring your foremothers and your forefathers and the principles that they stood for is everything, right? When you get into I see you taking notes, sister. Write down the word nation, right? Take the time to look up the definition of the word nation. One of the definitions of a nation is a people with a continued history, continuity of history, right? So with Negro, black, and colored, there's no continuity of history. You see what I'm saying? Your history started in 1860. Well, basically, as you have it now, started in 1865, but actually started in 1774. Okay, because those ones that were classed as as Negro, black, and colored in 1774, they were still Moors. They knew they were Moors, right? But by the time 1779 comes, these things have become legal structures. So anytime you refer to our people in a legal sense, they were known as Negroes, blacks, coloreds, and Ethiopians. And then the children of Negro, black, colored, Ethiopian is Latino, Latina, African American, Afro American. Someone's maybe after hairstyle, right? But so on and so forth. But it all goes back down to not honoring your foremothers and your forefathers. We hear this big fervor now about the movie Black Panther, which I'm not going to do that long because it's like 1,000 videos breaking out the movie Black Panther. I'm not going to jump in that fray. I'm not doing that. However, right, one thing that I did bear witness to when I saw the movie late, but just to see my people, man, just hype to see people that look like them in a cultural sense, right? two things, culture and nationality was the essence of that movie.
That's right.
I mean, you can get whatever else you want to get from it. There's other things in there, obviously, right? But the main themes are nationality and culture, right? Again, when the brother Killmonger was asked to prove who he was when they didn't die, he pulled the lid, showed the glyph, right? They said he had the ring, you know, that's the seal, right?
Right.
The royal house, right? You know. Then he said, in his own language, I am so and so, the son of so. Ran his. See, that's called in Arabic. That's called a. I'm gonna write the pink marker. You must have left this up. All right. It's called a silsila. A silsila in Arabic is basically kind of like the semblance is a chain, right? You know, with a chain, the chain is only as strong as each individual link. If there's one weak link in the chain will not, you know, the integrity, right, is compromised, right? But the word silsila literally means a link, right? So, an example, we've seen the concept of a silsila before when we read the Bible. When you look at the book of Matthew, chapter 1, verse 1, and they give the genealogy or the line through which Jesus came, right? And so-and-so begat so-and-so begat so-and-so, right? Now, because of what was done to us or what we did to ourselves, okay? Because we don't do victim mentality. Most Americans don't do victim mentality. That's why we're not a popular group. You see what I'm saying? If we stood behind this rostrum and talked about the European for like 5 hours, this room would probably be bursting at the seams because everyone wants to hear that. That's comfortable. But when we go to self-check, right? What principles did you violate today? You see what I'm saying? What things did you eat that you know that you haven't business eating? What thoughts did you think that you didn't have business thinking? See, that's more science. You know, that's Islam. Listen, that's what the Prophet Muhammad stood for, right? And it was when the Moors fell into the blame game, blaming their brothers for weaknesses going on in their territory, right? That caused these civil wars in our community. So, you know, it's like the thing of, you know how you went to sleep last night and you woke up this morning, and the things that was on your mind last night was on your mind this morning, right? So it's like the same thing. Like when you wake up and realize, wait a minute, I'm not a Negro, black, colored, or African American, you know, but what am I, right? You get to search, and then, you know, somebody, if you're fortunate enough, you know, might come up to you and ask you, what's your nationality, right? Or you might see somebody with a Fez headdress on or a turban, like my sister here. You're wearing that turban too sometimes, right? And but the point is that, you know, you come across somebody who, you know, introduced you to Moorish, you know, the pedigree pedigree nationality of your forefathers, right? Then all of a sudden now you get, you know, wow, okay, this is on me now. I really don't have any else to blame nobody. You see what I'm saying? Because I now know who I am. You understand what I'm saying? You know, so that's the thing you have to keep in mind, right? So now, I'd like to introduce a book, and here's something for your notes as well, and for the camera. This is the Roman Guide to Slave Management. Okay, so you've heard of Willie Lynch, right?
Yes, sir.
So, you know, everybody credits Willie Lynch for writing, and that's by Jeremy Toner, T-O-N as in no E-R. Everybody credits Willie Lynch with, you know, coming up with the strategy, you know, for how to break a slave, how to make a slave, so on and so on. Well, what people don't realize is that he was drawing off older texts. He was drawing off societies that had done that and were efficient at it. You see? The Romans were very efficient at it, right? The Romans bordered on chattel slavery. They weren't all the way there. It was almost there, right? But they were, you know, teeter-tottering with concepts, you know what I mean? Because they were still heavily influenced by the Greeks, and they were taking the concepts of government and kicking them back and forth. So in a setting like this, right, you have your top minds, right? And they throw out a concept about slavery, for example. And, you know, the best minds will argue the merits of slavery, right? It's a person born a slave. It's a person that finds themselves in slavery, bound to that institution, because on a spiritual level, right, they can't rise any higher. That's something they hit us with too as well, right? Well, you know, the slave can't think any higher. You know, they're belatedly subverted, right? So in this Roman Guide to Slave Management, in chapter 1, says how to buy a slave. Now keep in mind, the prophet told us why we ended up in that condition, right? So think about what this European is saying, right? And the European that actually wrote this text, his name is Marcus Sidonius, Sidonius, Fawkes, Falx. And that Fawkes, when you translate it over, means claw, which, by the way, if you remember the European that was on Black Panther, his name was Thor. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna try not to break the movie down. I'm gonna try to stay away from that. I was minding my own business and came across that. Chapter 1, How to Buy a Slave. Now listen to this now. Think back. Trace yourself back, right? While I'm reading this. It says, if a sculptor wishes to make a great work of art, he begins by searching out the piece of stone that most perfectly suits his purpose. So too, the slave owner must realize that it is only from the right kind of human material that he can ever hope to fashion slaves who display the desirable characteristics of cheerfulness, hard work, and obedience. It is vital that he takes the greatest care in selecting the best slaves in the market, ensuring that they are free from defects, whether physical, mental, or moral defects, right? Not honoring the creed and principles of your forefathers, moral defects, right? Here I shall instruct you how best to go about the difficult task of buying a slave. First, the where. Many will tell you to go out to the Roman Forum behind the Temple of Castor, but you would do well to ignore their advice. Only the lowest and roughest sorts of slave are offered for sale there. Far better are those to be found from the slave traders who operate in Saepta Julia, close by the Pantheon. This is particularly so if you are seeking to buy. Now think about today's society when I read this. This is particularly so if you are seeking to buy a soft boy. Okay? Or something from one of the more exotic regions of the empire or beyond, from such places as Ethiopia. All of these will be found among the traders there, although you must be sure to ask them directly if they have anything special tucked away in the back of their shops. They always keep their best hidden from the public view so as to retain them for their premium customers. Assalamu alaikum. You will have no trouble finding a castrated boy there too, if that is your desire, even though the law in theory prohibits such a trade. All right? So this is the type of people, see, like when we fell, you know, from the lofty status that we won, right? This is what we magnetized. See, we were thinking on such a low level, we imploded the empire, and these are the people we had to deal with on a daily basis. Okay? Legally speaking, slaves are either, now this is how slavery happened, right? And it happened for and against you, because we were heavily involved in the slave trade, our forefathers. We had the Europeans as slaves first, and then we were defeated, they took us, right? Legally speaking, slaves are either captives from war or descended from female slaves. But in reality, there are other avenues into servitude, which if you look up, write in your notes, Bouvier, B-O-U-V-I-E-R-S, Bouvier's Law Dictionary, and look up the entry of slave. And I think it's the third definition. It says children of female slaves follow the condition of their mother. That's why it's important for the sisters to get the nationality, you know, and automatically put the children under that mindset. Okay? It says some of the destitute illegally sell themselves into slavery to clear debts, or might sell one of their children to help feed the remaining offspring. It is common practice for people to abandon unwanted babies at the rubbish dump on the edge of town, and people sometimes raise these abandoned infants as their own slaves, even though such technically remain free-born. We see this in our society today. People leave babies everywhere. You know, side of the road, steps of the church, anything. You know what I'm saying? It is also to be suspected that slave dealers often buy their wares from traders who have simply kidnapped their goods using pirate raids to snatch adults and children from far-flung coastal regions. There is no doubt at all, however, concerning the legitimacy of those whom our armies have captured in war. These individuals owe their very lives to the mercy of our soldiers, who chose in the flush of victory not to massacre them, but to spare their miserable lives so they might provide us with services as payback for their military resistance. Captives from the wealthiest families might be given back to them after the payment of a satisfactory ransom. The rest pay for their lives through slavery. And you'll notice that there are cases when they were invading the Moorish territories where Moorish princes were captured, right? And you'll notice that this Moorish prince made his way back to his family. And it's because his family was wealthy enough to pay the ransom. Others weren't so fortunate, right? So that's the essence of the Roman concept of, and their literal teaching of how to go about, and buy a slave. And they go into the whole thing about how to be the master and all this type of stuff, whatever, right? But everything, as I was reading this book, side by side with my Quran, he hits key points that's right in line with Noble Drew Ali. Noble Drew Ali brought you something that was very ancient. He brought you the ancient mode of governance, okay? Now, I was asked a question, or asked to address a question before I left, to go get dressed to come back. Sister Lamani, could you repeat the question for me? Is social justice demonstrated?
How is social justice demonstrated by the Moorish Americans?
How is social justice demonstrated by the Moorish Americans? All right. First, I'd like us to go to the chapter of social duties. Let's start there. And again, to be merciful to the Moors, I'm going to read one verse from that, right? And then I'm going to go to the very next chapter, the chapter of justice, right? So you got social duties there, you got social there, and then the very next chapter is justice. So you have social justice right there, right? Now, what you have to know is that social justice is a concept that's when you start speaking that way, you're speaking, United Nations language. You're speaking international law language. You're speaking the family of nations language, right? There's certain phrases and concepts that are not even, the world doesn't expect you to know, okay? But before I hit that, okay, now that you're prepped with your Qurans, right? I'd like to draw from, I know it's not the best source in the world, right? But you could cross-reference it and see the same thing. The Wikipedia entry on social justice says social justice is a concept of fair and just relations between the individual and society. Now, for those taking notes, write down the word society. This is measured by the explicit and tacit terms, that means overt and covert, basically, terms for the distribution of wealth, opportunities for personal activity, and social privileges. In Western as well as older Asian cultures, the concept of social justice is often referred to the process of ensuring that individuals fulfill their societal roles and receive what was their due from society. So they just gave you the definition right there. That due is justice, right? And society is the last word in the sentence. In the current global grassroots movements for social justice, the emphasis has been on breaking the barriers for social mobility, the ability to move up in society, the creation of safety nets, and economic justice, right? And just hit the second paragraph and move on. Social justice assigns rights and duties, write those two down, rights and duties, in the institutions of society, which enables people to receive the basic benefits and burdens of cooperation. The relevant institutions often include taxation, social insurance, public health, public school, public services, labor, law, and the regulation of markets to ensure fair distribution of wealth and equal opportunity. Now, Neely Fuller, who was the mentor for Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, who wrote the ISIS Papers, he classified that, he said, there's 9 areas of people activity that so-called white supremacy focuses itself on, right? We say European psychology, we don't define people as colors, right? But it says these 9 are education, entertainment, economics, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Now these are 9 elements, right, that social justice has to function in. Because if it doesn't function in those areas, people will find themselves as what they refer to as disenfranchised or outside of the company. That's, you see what I'm saying? Or outside of the body, right? Or outside of the constitutional form of government, as Prophet Noble Drew Ali put it, right? Now, with social duties, the Prophet instructs us in chapter 30, verse 1, as we know very well, but it's good to go over it again. Redundancy is the mother of mastery. It says, when thou considerest thy wants, and when thou beholdest thy imperfections, acknowledge his goodness, O son of humanity, who honored thee with humanity, endowed thee with speech, and placed thee in society, is that word again, to receive and confer reciprocal helps and mutual obligations, protection from injuries, thy enjoyments of the comforts and the pleasures of life. All these thou owest to the assistance of others, and couldst not enjoy but in the bands of society, right? So imagine like an onion, right? and that, onion is in layers. Peel back layers, another layer, peel back. That's society, right? So you have what is known as civil society. You have what is known, write that down, civil society. And then you have what is known as a jural society, Jural. Civil society, which, so I can give you something, not saying y'all here, but for the camera, people don't like to believe you unless Europeans have stated it. So, Colorado.edu has an article, and that's Colorado.edu/conflict/peace/treatment, right? Says the term civil society is generally used to refer to social relations and organizations outside the state or government control, right? So, if you read how the Prophet Noble Drew Ali set the Moorish Science Temple of America up, right, the state government really doesn't have much to do with our affairs. The Prophet told you, said, don't take your business before the European, right? You gotta sue your brother or sister, sue them in the temple, and we'll make sure it's enforced. That's where this has to go, because certain civilized groups that are here in America, they refer to themselves as American citizens, they demonstrate these things. And now, the only time you see them like in the courts, stuff like that, usually they're dealing with foreign people, another group of people that's outside of their cultural group, right? Every so often you see like a Chinese person in court. Very rare, right? But the civil societies are the various groups that's outside of government control that have organized themselves, and that's where the jural society comes in. A jural society is a society that makes and enforces its own laws. It's a law governing body, right? The Moorish Science Temple of America has such. We have what is known as the Grand Body. We have what is known as the Supreme Grand Council, right? And those take place on a national level, right? And every temple has its, Act 1 government as well. So, as you know, with our divine constitution and bylaws, Act 1 is the government, the actual constitution, 2 through 7 are the bylaws, okay? So, it says, sometimes it is also taken to mean outside the economic or business spheres as well. It doesn't have to mean that, but sometimes it does. Usually, civil society refers to non-governmental organizations, right? The acronym, that NGO, which is non-governmental organizations, and associations that people belong to for social and political reasons. Here's where you come in, right? When they're using the word church. Churches and church groups, community groups, youth groups, service organizations, interest groups, and academic institutions and organizations, for example. It also refers to the activities of these organizations. Though independent of the governmental structure, these organizations frequently become involved in political activities. They try to influence governmental decision-making and participate in a variety of public participation processes. As such, the establishment and maintenance of a healthy society is extremely important for the successful development and operation of democratic political systems. One more paragraph. During the times of crisis created by war, the structures of civil society often disintegrate or are forcefully closed, the era of slavery. The same thing happens when authoritarian or autocratic governments see civil institutions as a threat and close them down. This greatly weakens the integrative system and leads to social relations based largely on fear and force. Key to overcoming such a society is the reestablishment of the multitude of social and political NGOs, which give non-governmental organizations, which give people a voice in the affairs of their life, the affairs of men, giving them a sense of belonging and integration with other countrymen and women, and connect them with their democratic system in a meaningful way. So the Prophet Noble Drew Ali gives us the Moorish Science Temple of America so we can interact with each other on a lawful and legal level, as well as to interact with other American citizens as equals. You see? Because prior to this, we interacted on a slave level, right? So it was master and servant. It wasn't equality. Islam? All right? So now, let's go to the chapter of justice, the very next chapter. Right? The Prophet says, verse 1, he describes the society. The peace of society dependeth on justice. The happiness of individuals on the safe enjoyment of all their possessions. Keep the desires of thy heart, therefore, within the bounds of moderation. Let the hand of justice lead them aright. Cast down the evil eye on the goods of thy neighbor. Let whatever is his property be sacred from thy touch. These are laws, Morris. Right? This is just not a loose philosophy. These are the jural laws for the Moorish Science Temple of America to show you how to move. Okay? It says, let no temptation allure thee, nor any provocation excite thee to lift up thy hand to the hazard of his life. And that actually says any provocation, right? So there's no excuse enough to threaten the life of your brother or sister, not according to Islamism or the teachings of handed down by the Prophet. Right? It says, defame him not in his character. Defamation of character is an actual offense, right? Bear no false witness against him. Corrupt not his servant to cheat or forsake him, and the wife of his bosom, or tempt not to sin. It will be a grief to his heart, which thou canst not relieve, an injury to his life, which no reparation can atone. The term injury and the term reparation are both legal terms, even though this is a religious text, right? So the prophet is combining, like, he had to put us in an environment that seemed harmless, right? And where he could teach us how to function in the broader society as American citizens. Because once we step out these doors and go amongst other people, because right, contrary, well, not even contrary to popular belief, but the reality is we don't live around each other, right? We don't live around each other. We really can't get each other's back efficiently, right? Something happens to you, I might be able to get to you, but how long will it take, and will the damage already be done by that? Islam, all right? Something to really ponder on, right? It says, in thy dealings with men, be impartial and just, and do unto them as thou wouldst they should do unto thee, the golden rule, right? But that impartiality, right, that's what judges are supposed to be, right? So the prophet is instructing you on how to, judge in the sense where, a person's station or your friendship, or none of that has anything to do with it. It's the law. You're honoring the law or not. And if you're not, then, here's what needs to be done so you can make a speedy reparation. Islam says, be faithful to thy trust, and deceive not the man who relieth upon thee. Be assured it is less evil in the sight of Allah to steal than to betray. More laws. Oppress not the poor, and defraud not of his hire the laboring man. When thou sellest for gain, hear the whispering of conscience, and be satisfied with moderation, nor from the ignorance of the buyer make any advantage. Pay the debts which thou owest, for he who gave thee credit relies upon thine honor, and to withhold from him his due is both mean and unjust. Now, after you've done all those things, right, it says, finally, right, O son of society. So now you're considered to be a part of society if you do these things, right? Examine thy heart, call remembrance to thy aid, and if in any of these things thou hast transgressed, make a speedy reparation to the utmost of thy power. Islam, surely Allah speaks the truth concerning of our prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Now, how do you enforce all of that, right? Prophet made it clear. There's Moorish God newspaper, which was the legal organ, for the Moorish Science of America. The Prophet on many occasions referred to us as a nation, right? As a nation of people, right? Every nation has to have its, what they call legal organ, which is the periodical, right? The sanctioned periodical for that group, or for that organized body, or for that society. On February 19th, 1929, the Prophet authored an article entitled Political Slavery. He says, anytime a man or woman fails or refuses to cast a sacred ballot at the polls, they separate themselves from all rights of an American citizen. For surely this is the one connecting medium for a citizen to his nation. They become no more than belated beasts of burdens. There are reasons why certain classes who are more or less independent take no parts in politics, since they say they get nothing out of such in the way of material gain. This is no less than a political slave, since they refuse to voice their sentiments at the polls. And again, right? How you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you get this system down, right, of casting a vote at the polls, right, or speaking up in society or in government, right, you get that down. When it comes time for you to to speak up in your own government, right, it becomes easy then, right? There's no better way to practice how to govern yourselves, right, than to function in a broader society as a whole. Islam, right? So example, like, I've thrown out before, like, there's whole cities that are for sale right now. Like if you want to buy a city, there's a city in Toomsville, Georgia. They want $2 million for it, that's it. You just go and buy a whole city, that could be the Moorish city. That could be the city of Drew Ali, Georgia, if we wanted it, right? But the point is that you're going to go out there, and if you don't know government, what you're going to do? You're going to go out there and tear it up. You see what I'm saying? Have Negro problems, so on and so forth. So, you go, what you do is, before you get something like that, you get a job down at planning and zoning downtown. Master that, so that way you have that skill to bring to the nation when it's time, right? Because the time may come, Allah is the best of knowers, right? But the time may come when you will literally have to govern yourself, right? Anyone be keeping track with how many of President Trump's cabinet members have charges on right now? You know? Yeah, it's ridiculous, you know? And, you know, it's to the point where our people have been disenfranchised for so long, right? We're gonna have to either save this or create our own. Islam is worthy of the thought. You know, if you know Noble Drew Ali, that's the undertone, and I don't mind saying this on camera, that's the undertone of his message, right? Because you have to be ready to govern yourself accordingly. Islam?
Sheik.
It says, another form of political slavery, which is probably more prevalent among the less independent classes, is that of being forced in one of the major parties and there bribed, coerced, and otherwise forced to vote the wishes of someone else, regardless of their own minds, right? So that bribed and coerced and so on and so forth. See, there are groups that are so strong in this country because of their political contributions, right? We did a little basic research earlier in the week on the NRA. So everybody's looking at the gun rights, right? You know, all the kids in that school in Florida walked out because, you know, the 17 kids that got killed, but peace be upon their souls. But the reality of it is the gun laws are not going to change. Right? If they're going to do it, it's going to be in favor of the NRA. Why is that? You know, one, the NRA is organized. Right? They have affluent people that are part of their particular civil society. That's what it is. Right? And they contribute $5 million a year to Congress. Right? So if you want to get involved in politics, politics is money. Politics is capital. There's a term, political capital, that if you're not contributing now, like why is it worth the senator's time? You know what it goes to get a bill passed? You know what it takes? You know? And, you know, it starts in a committee, they chop it up, whatever. They shoot it to the floor, they look at it. No, send it back to committee, it needs some more tweaks, right? It goes to the House of Representatives, they might vote on it, it goes, passes there, whatever, they shoot it over to the Senate. Senate can be like, nah, we don't like it, send it back. It's a lot of back and forth, it takes years to get bills passed, right? To even get on their radar, you have to be known to have contributed a certain amount, right? Why the prophet said, until you have a grand treasurer, you're nothing, right? Your grand treasurer is your national treasurer, right? That's where all the temples contribute to a national pot, right? And that gets parlayed off into federal dollars and funding. Islam, that's the game Noble Drew Ali played, right? And that was the beginning of it because we were supposed to take and extend the learning, right? Which means we were supposed to take what he did and take it to new heights, right? As far as the prophet got relative to enacting law was, you know, he got to the state levels and stuff. You know, he was getting invited to, you know, the governor's inaugurations and stuff like that. Had the prophet live, Allah knows best, but we could easily see the prophet being invited to a presidential situation, how he was moving and mobilizing Moors. Islam, and that's the thing, can you mobilize the people, right? Here's the thing to think of, right, is the fact that number one, you know, it would behoove the Moors, you know, the proclaimed members of the Moor Science of America to unify. Because it's going to be almost impossible to unify the Asiatics if we're broken. Now, we're not broken, it's an illusion. Because when you really get to the, under what's the beefs are, they're paying, right? Most of them, there are some that are pretty serious, but for the most part, they're paying, right? So we can heal that, right? And we have, wherever Asiatics are, we have to find ourselves amongst the Asiatics as ourselves, but in support of what they do, right? And to the point where we take their understanding to new heights, right? So we understand that, you know, like I said, like last night they had a panel discussion on the movie Black Panther. I wasn't able to make it, I got the message real late. But the point is that, you know, it would have been very nice for the Moors to have been there just to hear the Asiatics and be in support of the movie, and the Moors were in attendance. Praise Allah. Praise Allah. I didn't get the memo, but praise Allah. Praise Allah. But the point is, okay, did y'all speak?
Yes.
Oh, praise Allah. Again, I need that report before we leave. Definitely. But, so praise Allah. So that's right on time. So the Moors are moving as they're supposed to, right? But the point is, why are we doing this? We're not doing that to go there to be the deepest people in the room. We're not going there to show off and brag and to condescend, to sit on the high camel and look down. No, we're there to, you know, in order, the brother Jabari and I had this conversation earlier in the week, in order to start a conversation with somebody, you gotta be cool with them first. You know what I mean? And that's as Moors, we don't do that. We get the knowledge and we beat people with it. We abuse people with it. You know what I'm saying? And instead of just, you know, just being around, like I said, with your fez or turban on or whatever, and just, you know, just being that cool brother or sister. You know what I mean? Once you got that, then it's like, you know what, man? I was around some boys, they ain't that bad. Once you got that, or they start referring to you as the brothers, or the sisters was here, stuff like that. Once you've earned that, now you might be able to inject a thought. You know, to raise up. You see what I'm saying? It's just food for thought, you know what I mean? But that's really what what a prophet was. And this last paragraph here, before there can be general relief for the economic good of all forms of political slavery must be abolished, and every citizen must take his part in the affairs of the nation. Firstly, we got to get our people to proclaim the fact that they're citizens. Most of our people don't even view themselves as such, right? And it's because of the mentality. It's because of that, we descendants from slaves mentality, right? So automatically you view yourself as disenfranchised, all right? Read one more article, which is 2 paragraphs. All registering, right? It says the 3,000 Muslims of the Grand Temple and the West Side Temple are making ready to register every man or woman in order to take the lead for the various candidates whom they have been instructed to vote for. Really quick, right now, there's an Asiatic sister running for governor in Georgia. We're not behind that? You see what I'm saying? Like, do we know anything about the sister? Can we get an audience with the sister? This needs to be done. We need to see if she has a platform that's suitable for the Moors. And if so, we need to back the sister and get her name out there. And that race is not November, it's May. Islam?
Islam.
All right, so that's something to look forward to. Alderman Lewis B. Anderson, Honorable George W. Blackwell, Honorable Oscar DePriest, Honorable H. Jackson, all working through the regular Republican organizations, which the Honorable Daniel M. Jackson is our matchless leader, all know the whole situation and have their own way and time to give the order to go. The Muslims will be ready. And that's October 26, 1928. So the Prophet was not only a prophet of Allah, he was also a general and knew how to organize and mobilize the troops and give marching orders, right? That's something that, we really have to be concerned with, because if we're not organized ourselves, we can't mobilize. If we can't mobilize, we can't organize the people to get the positive effect we need for change, right? I want to read one last paragraph, then I can take questions and then possibly go with a meeting. Right? I'll be drawing from the last paragraph in the Declaration of Independence, right? Which reads, it says, "We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions," that's virtue, "do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare," that's proclaim, "that these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may have the right to do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of the divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other, and this is the important part, our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Islam Moors, if we don't give our lives, our fortunes, and our honor to this movement, we might as well not join it. Islam? Because if we don't give all to make sure it happens and it comes to fruition, who else will? And if the Moorish Science Temple of America fails, which it won't, because victory is assured because Allah leads on. If it fails, what salvation is there for the people? Where will the people be taught their nationality and the descent nature of their forefathers? Right? Where is the the society that will speak on behalf of the government, on behalf of our people to the government? Islam? Where's the organization that will teach our people that they are the government? Right? There's no such thing as the government. We've made that as a false boogeyman as well. Oh, the government, the government ain't doing this, the government. Every time you say that's a metaphor for what you're not doing. Islam?
Islam.
So just something to think on, right? And with that, I'll lower the meeting. Thank you for your questions. Islam Moors, Moorish Science Temple of America, Noble Drew Ali founder, home office, Chicago, Illinois, March 11th, 1929. A warning from the Prophet to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must put an end to all radical and agitating speech while on their jobs, homes, or on the public streets. We advocate peace and not destruction. Stop trying out your cards with the Europeans, for it causes confusion. There has been much confusion caused by members trying out their cards. The cards are for your salvation. Failure of obeying my orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members that seek to hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet, or to violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors must obey the laws laid down to them by their prophet, and if they lose confidence in their prophet, give up your card and button, cease wearing your turban or fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. For this is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet, noble Heru Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet is sending out a divine plea to all true Moorish Americans that they may do their part in protecting the prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace, noble Heru Ali. Islam, Moors. Now, in closing, I would like to read a small poem from a Sufi. Sufis, when they write poetry, is more like a heart. Sufi is a mystic, Islamic mystic. It's more of an outpouring of their heart, of their love and devotion for Allah. This poem is called The Ants. It says, O Allah, who is the breath in my body, the blood in my veins, the light in my days, please help me in my love of those who do not understand me and hate me, not knowing that you sent me to them with the light. O Allah, could I have not been sent to lead the ants? I think they could have understood. O Allah, my King, forever, forgive me this question. It is the cry of the half-human nature you gave me in thy work. O my sustainer, do I have your permission to cry for those that do not love you? The hurt, the pain they are to receive for this. They cannot see nor hear you. I know, O my Father, that you gave them the senses. O Allah, who has the power to extract the salt from our tears and the savor from the salt, divide also the evil from the good in our hearts. Part again the red sea of good and evil in the earth, and let us walk in your narrow path, the narrow path of those before us. I see the narrow path, my Father. I want to teach them to walk in it, love of you and not fear. Help me, help me, help me. O seal of the prophets, news bearer, I see you have glorified my name. I have sent you to them, but they do not believe. Surely I love them so very much by the tongue of the Messiah, Isa. Sheik Heru, thank you for your time. Again, green is what it is to be. To be with you was as refreshing as the birth of the birds, the signs of summer. Your voice whispered the truth in my heart. Even help the pale, cursed people, for they too need my help. Clean them not of their disease, but of the sins of their hands and feet, which keep them pointing and walking as if they say, I cannot see Allah, but they do. Please take their hands off the faces of my foolish brothers and sisters, daughters and sons, the negligent. Let me blink for the whole world, and when my eyes are open again, let me see Jibreel, the angel Gabriel, and his host at your gate. Provider of all things that we see and cannot see, plus what we miss and try to miss, I speak to all the world. I am here for you, to bring the lamp, to light your way. To Allah, look this way, look this way. I am here. Love Allah. Islam, Moors. And the reason why I read that, because this is our holy day, Moors. And if we do all this national speaking and don't inject spirit into it, the purpose of the movement becomes carnal and then ego flares. See? So we have to remember that there's something that's greater than us, that's supposed to drive and keep us in sync with one another. And when we ignore that fact, right, we find ourselves in the state that we're in, that the Asiatics of America are in. Islam, and as the Sufi said, he said, if I had been sent to lead the ants, I'm sure they could have understood. Because you see, the ants honor their forefathers. They haven't stopped building. Islam, it's high time we start building like the ants and the bees. Islam, to go ahead and get this infrastructure where it needs to be so the generations behind us can inherit. And with that, I'll lower the meeting. I'll jump. Everyone please rise. Face the east, which is right ahead of you. The tradition of our Moorish forefathers, please hold your feet at a 45-degree angle. Standing on your square. Raise 5 fingers on your left, 2 fingers on your right, invoking the sacred presence of the seven Elohim that created everything that ever was, is, or evermore to be. Please repeat after me. Allah, the Father of the universe,
Father of the universe,
the Father of love,
Father of love,
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my guide,
and my salvation,
and my salvation,
my night
my night,
and my day.
and my day.
Through his holy prophet,
Through his holy prophet,
Drew Ali.
Ali.
Amen.
Amen.
Islam.
Islam.
Praise Allah, Lord. Thank you for your time.